Now I have the privilege of introducing Congresswoman Delia Ramirez. Congresswoman Delia Ramirez represents Illinois' 3rd Congressional District right here in Chicago. She is a consistent champion for progressive social justice causes, including building a U.S. foreign policy rooted in humanity, dignity, and human rights for all people. Just this month, Congresswoman Ramirez introduced the groundbreaking Block the Bombs Act alongside 21 other colleagues to stop the flow of major U.S. weapons to the Israeli military. We are so grateful for her leadership and honored to have her here today.
Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. As you heard, my name is Delia Catalina Ramirez. I am a Chicagoan, born and raised here. And what I know about Chicago, what I know about our communities, what I know about this moment is that we understand what injustice looks like because we have seen it, we have experienced it, and we understand that it is our moral responsibility to collectively stand together, understanding that we are all interconnected one way or another. As you heard a moment ago, a few weeks ago, in front of the United States Capitol, along a number of members of Congress, and with a number of national organizations, human rights organizations, I stood there to introduce proudly the Block the Bombs Act. What will this bill do? Well, first, let me tell you, it is not a resolution. It is a bill, an act that would withhold offensive weapons that are supplied by the U.S. to Israel and demand Israel's compliance with U.S. and international law. My commitment for this bill has only deepened as we continue to face unacceptable losses and horrific acts of violence. I denounce today and will continue to reject all forms of hate-fueled violence from Palestine and Israel to D.C. and Boulder. And today, as we see escalating violence in the Middle East, I am clear that each tragedy adds to a litany of evidence that our safety, that our security is interconnected, and that I and we can hold the Israeli government accountable and also affirm everyone's right to safety and security, and that includes Palestinians. You see, a number of people tell me, well, Congresswoman, why do this bill? Why stand courageously about an issue that others have called a controversy? It's too complicated for you to understand what has happened in that region. The terminology is complicated for you to understand. What is complicated about understanding that you can't starve people and bomb them and bring peace? There is no complicated controversy about that. You either are for peace or you are for war. You're either about unity or about division. But I also remind people that think that I may be uninformed about what's happening in Palestine. I may be uninformed about occupation. I may not understand what is happening there. I remind them that before I was an elected official, before I was a state representative, and certainly before I was in Congress, I was in Palestine. I saw that occupation. I talked to Jewish, Israeli, Palestinian, Christian, and Muslim leaders who said, not in our name, that the only way this war ends of Palestinians, that this occupation ends, is by making sure that the United States government understands that you cannot continue to use United States tax dollars to bomb and create a war, that if you really want security and safety of all, we have to understand the role that the United States plays. And let me tell you, that trip fundamentally changed me. The bombing, we know, must stop. Yes, the hostages must be returned. And we must address the hateful anti-Muslim, anti-Palestinian, anti-Semitic rhetoric that denies our shared humanity. And the collective punishment of the Palestinian people must end now. But as I say that to all of you, instead of moving to a just peace, in the last few months, the Netanyahu government has imposed a humanitarian blockade that has cut off food and aid to more than 2 million Palestinians. Recently approved plans to seize the Gaza Strip. They began a ground invasion. They bombed 36 people, including children, while they slept in a school turned into shelter in Gaza City. They're working with Trump to continue their plan of Palestinian displacement so that they can enable Trump's rich friends to redevelop land that belongs to the Palestinian people. And now Israel and Iran are in this regional war. Netanyahu is using a U.S.-supplied weapons to perpetrate this campaign of starvation, of displacement, and death in violation of U.S. and international law. A campaign, by the way, described by the former Israeli Prime Minister as war crimes against Palestinians. It's not lost on me that the Senate is considering this ugly Republican budget that steals from the most vulnerable 10% of Americans to benefit the wealthiest 10%. The Trump budget, which would lead to starvation, displacement, and death at home for so many Americans, has the same roots and the assault of the Palestinian people have and the human rights abuses we're seeing in Salvador. I need you to hear that. All of this is interconnected. Trump and Bibi Netanyahu are extremist duo. For me, everything that is happening from cutting of services that Americans rely on to mass deportations, attacks on human rights defenders, and the death and displacement of Palestinian people is connected. Trump and Netanyahu want our resources. They want our land. They want our freedoms. They want our lives so that they can advance their imperialist, authoritarian agendas across the world. And we have to understand that we cannot be human rights defenders and not support Block the Bombs Act. You either are for peace or you are not. We have to honor the lives that have been lost and the conflict by saving lives. I want you to look at those faces. For those that are watching this on screen, would you care more for them if they weren't Palestinian? Would you say enough is enough if they were from other countries? The reality is, and Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib says this over and over, when it comes to children, it shouldn't matter if they're Palestinian, Guatemalan, Venezuelan, Ukrainian, Israeli. Children are children, and it is our responsibility to save them. Block the Bombs is a first step towards real oversight and accountability for the consequences of a military campaign that in the last year and a half has killed more than 54,000 Palestinians. Enough lives that could fill this entire federal plaza and more. To be clear, this doesn't interrupt Israel's ability to defend itself, but it does create a check and balance. The president, Donald Trump, cannot sell, transfer, or license bombs unless Israel can define a purpose for the use, and Congress would have to pass a bill to release the weapons. We call that oversight, a thing that every member of Congress should be doing more of. And so today, to the hunger strikers, I want to thank you for your courage. I want to thank you for standing up for this moment. I know that you've been called many things. I know that your own identity has been questioned in this moment for choosing peace and shared humanity. But I want you to know that as long as I am alive and breathing, which I know many people are threatening our safety here as well, I will continue to choose peace over war. Because you and I both know we will never bomb ourselves to peace. So today we have 23 members of Congress on the Block the Bombs bill, including 3 Jewish members of Congress from California, Vermont, and Chicago, Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky. So keep organizing, keep speaking truth to power, and know that I continue to be in solidarity with you, and I'm not alone. I am part of the 3rd Congressional District, where Graciela Guzman is the state senator, where Anthony Quesada, Rosana Rodriguez Sanchez are older people who would have voted Anthony had he been in city council for a ceasefire. And we will continue to ensure that every place we are, we continue to speak up and say, even when your voice shakes, never stop speaking truth to power, because we must do everything in our power so that Gaza can live today, tomorrow, and every day. Let's get Block the Bombs Act to more members of Congress. Let's make sure that not one more child, not one more life is lost in the senseless war against Palestinians. A trabajar se ha dicho, it's what we say in Spanish. Let's get to work. Gracias.